The alien ship landed with a soft hiss on the grassy plains outside New Sol colony. Steam rose from the metallic hull as it cooled in the morning air of Kepler 442c. Through the transparent viewing ports, 6 different alien species peered out at the human settlement below. Thexmore adjusted his recording devices with one of his 4 arms, while his large compound eyes scanned the colony layout. As the lead xenobiologist for the Galactic Council, he had studied dozens of species across the galaxy, but humans remained a puzzle that frustrated him. They expanded faster than any other species, yet they seemed physically weak compared to most galactic civilizations. "Look at their settlement pattern," Thexmore said to his team in the Universal Translator language. "They have built their main colony directly in the hunting grounds of the local apex predators. This makes no logical sense." Clicktar, the insectoid Zentarian observer, clicked his mandibles in agreement. "My analysis shows this valley has the highest concentration of shadowmaw activity on the entire continent. Any rational species would choose the safer highlands." Through his surveillance equipment, Thexmore watched the human colonists going about their daily routines. Men and women moved between buildings with casual confidence. Children played in open areas. No one seemed worried about the dangerous creatures that ruled this planet. The Shadowmaws were legendary across this sector of space. Standing nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder, they possessed adaptive camouflage that made them nearly invisible. Their razor-sharp claws could slice through most armor, and their pack-hunting intelligence rivaled that of many spacefaring species. Previous survey teams had recommended this planet be marked as uninhabitable due to the Shadowmaw population. Yet, here the humans were not just surviving but apparently thriving. "Initial contact in 30 minutes, announced the ship's communication system. Thexmore made final adjustments to his portable laboratory equipment. Today would begin a standard 2-week observation period. The Galactic Council needed to understand how humans achieved their rapid expansion rate. Some council members suspected humans had advanced military technology they kept hidden. Others thought humans might have discovered new terraforming techniques. The landing party consisted of representatives from 6 allied species. Each brought different sensory capabilities and analytical tools. Together, they should be able to document every aspect of human colonial behavior. The main settlement of New Sol stretched across the valley floor like a living organism. Unlike the rigid geometric patterns favored by most galactic civilizations, the human buildings seemed to grow organically from the landscape. Gardens and open spaces broke up the residential areas. Wide paths connected different districts instead of enclosed corridors. Captain Lee Jiho emerged from the largest building as the alien delegation descended from their ship. He wore simple work clothes rather than formal diplomatic attire. His black hair was touched with gray, and his weathered hands suggested years of physical labor. Behind him walked Dr. Park Minji, a woman in her 30s wearing a practical field jacket over her scientist clothes. "Welcome to New Sol," Captain Lee said in accented but clear galactic standard. He bowed slightly in the human custom. "We are honored by your visit." Thexmore noted the captain's relaxed posture. Most species showed some tension during first contact situations. Humans seemed remarkably calm about meeting alien observers. "We thank you for permitting this study period," Thexmore replied formally. "The Galactic Council wishes to learn from your successful colonial methods." Dr. Park stepped forward with a warm smile. "We have prepared quarters for your team in the guest complex. You will have full access to our facilities and records." As they walked toward the settlement, Thexmore observed the human infrastructure more closely. Solar collectors provided power, but they were integrated into building designs rather than dominating the landscape. Water systems followed natural drainage patterns. Food production areas mixed agricultural plots with what appeared to be preserved wild spaces. "Your settlement design is unusual," Thexmore commented. "We try to work with the existing ecosystem rather than replacing it," Dr. Park explained. This planet had a functioning environment long before we arrived. Engineer Kim Tai-ho joined their group as they entered the main settlement area. He was a stocky man with calloused hands and practical clothes. The local wildlife actually helps us in many ways, he said. We just had to learn how to communicate our intentions. Kliktar's antennae twitched with confusion. Communicate with non-sentient predators? Intelligence takes many forms. Kim Tai-ho replied with a shrug. The guest quarters were comfortable but simple. Each alien observer received a private room, with appropriate environmental controls. The main common area featured large windows overlooking the colony's central plaza. From here, the observers could watch daily human activities without interfering. As afternoon faded to evening, the alien team set up their monitoring equipment. Motion sensors, thermal imagers, and audio pickups would record human behavior around. The clock. Night was when the shadow maws were most active, and the observers expected to learn about human defensive measures. The welcoming ceremony began as the sun touched the western mountains. Colonists gathered in the central plaza carrying lanterns and small gifts. Children sat cross-legged on woven mats while adults formed loose circles around them. Someone began singing in the Korean language, and others joined in with harmonious voices. Thexmore recorded everything through his instruments. The ceremony seemed entirely peaceful, almost vulnerable. No weapons were visible, no defensive barriers activated. The humans appeared to be deliberately making themselves exposed and visible. That was when the wounded shadow maw stumbled into the plaza. The creature emerged from tall grass at the settlement's edge, moving with the unsteady gait of serious injury. Dark blood matted its camouflaged fur. One front leg dragged uselessly, and its breathing came in harsh gasps. Even wounded, the shadow maw was massive and terrifying. Its yellow eyes reflected the lantern light as it surveyed the gathered humans. The alien observers tensed, expecting panic and screaming. Their instruments detected elevated heart rates and stress hormones in the human population. But instead of fleeing, the colonists became very still and quiet. Captain Lee Ji-ho rose slowly from his position in the ceremony circle. He spoke soft, words in Korean to the people around him, then began walking toward the wounded predator with empty hands visible. Fascinating, Thexmore whispered to his recording device. The human leader approaches the threat directly. This could be either extreme courage or dangerous foolishness. The captain moved with deliberate calm, each step measured and non-threatening. He continued speaking in Korean, his voice gentle and soothing. The wounded shadow maw watched him approach, but did not retreat or attack. Its ears swiveled forward in what behavioral analysis suggested was curiosity rather than aggression. When Captain Lee reached speaking distance, he crouched down to make himself smaller and less intimidating. He extended one hand slowly, palm up, while continuing his soft Korean words. The shadow maw sniffed the air, taking in his scent. Dr. Park Min-ji approached from the side, carrying what appeared to be a medical kit. She moved with the same careful deliberation as the captain. The wounded predator's head turned to track her movement, but it showed no signs of fear or anger. This behavior violates every known protocol for dealing with apex predators, Kliktar observed through the team's communication link. Captain Lee began examining the shadow maw's injured leg with gentle hands. The creature allowed this contact, though its muscles remained tense with pain. Dr. Park opened her medical kit and began preparing supplies. Over the next hour, the two humans worked together to clean and bandage the predator's wounds. They administered what appeared to be pain medication and antibiotics. The shadow maw gradually relaxed under their care, eventually lying down to make the treatment easier. The other colonists maintained their quiet vigil throughout the process. Children watched with wide eyes but showed no fear. Adults exchanged quiet words but made no move to interfere or flee. When the treatment was complete, Captain Lee and Dr. Park moved back to give the creature space. The shadow maw tested its bandaged leg, then looked directly at the captain with an expression that seemed almost grateful. "Impossible," Thexmore muttered as he reviewed his recordings. "Apex predators do not express gratitude to other species." The wounded shadow maw slowly retreated to the tall grass beyond the plaza. But it did not disappear entirely. Throughout the rest of the evening, the alien sensors detected its presence at the settlement's edge, watching the continuing ceremony with apparent interest. As the human celebration concluded and colonists returned to their homes, the alien observation team gathered to discuss what they had witnessed. "The humans showed mercy to a dangerous predator," concluded the reptilian observer, Sistal. "This suggests they possess advanced empathy that overrides survival instincts." "But notice how organized their response was," Thexmore pointed out. "This was not panic-driven compassion. They seemed to have protocols for this exact situation." 3 days had passed since the wounded shadow maw incident. The alien observation team had settled into their monitoring routine, recording every detail of human colonial life. Thexmore spent his mornings reviewing sensor data while his colleagues analyzed different aspects of human behavior. The settlement of New Sol operated with surprising efficiency. Humans worked together on various tasks without the rigid hierarchies common to most galactic civilizations. Children attended educational sessions in the mornings and helped with community tasks in the afternoons. Adults rotated between different responsibilities based on need and skill. Most puzzling to the alien observers was the humans' continued casual attitude toward the dangerous wildlife surrounding their colony. Motion sensors detected multiple shadow maw signatures in the nearby forests and grasslands, yet the colonists went about their daily routines without visible concern. "Their stress hormones remain at baseline levels," reported Sistal, the reptilian physiological specialist. "Either these humans have remarkable emotional control, or they genuinely do not fear the local predators." Kliktar adjusted his compound eyes to focus on the settlement's perimeter. "My analysis suggests the latter. Their body language indicates comfort and familiarity rather than suppressed fear." On the third morning, Thexmore was calibrating his long-range sensors when movement at the settlement's eastern edge caught his attention. The same wounded shadow maw from the welcoming ceremony had returned. The creature moved with more confidence now, its injured leg clearly healing well under the bandages applied by Captain Lee and Dr. Park. The predator approached the settlement boundary and stopped at the edge of the tall grass. It sat on its haunches and made a low rumbling sound that the alien translation computers could not interpret. The sound carried across the quiet morning air like a deep musical note. Within minutes, a human emerged from one of the residential buildings. Yoon So-young was the settlement's maintenance chief, responsible for keeping the colony's infrastructure running smoothly. She was a woman in her 40s with graying hair tied back in a practical ponytail and work clothes that showed years of. Yoon So-young walked directly toward the waiting shadow maw without hesitation. She carried a container in one hand and a water bottle in the other. Her movements were calm and purposeful, showing none of the caution the alien observers expected when approaching an apex predator. "Alert status," Thexmore announced to his team. "Human is making direct contact with the predator. All sensors focused on the interaction zone." The woman stopped about 3 meters from the shadow maw and crouched down to place the container on the ground. She opened the lid to reveal what appeared to be processed meat, cut into manageable portions. The smell reached the alien sensors immediately, triggering their food analysis protocols. "The meat has been treated with local spices and nutrients," reported the team's chemical analyst. "This is not random food waste. Someone prepared this specifically for carnivorous consumption." So-young backed away a few steps and settled cross-legged on the grass to wait. The shadow maw approached the container cautiously, sniffing the offered meal. After a moment of consideration, it began eating with obvious appreciation. While the creature fed, So-young spoke to it in Korean. Her voice carried the same gentle tones Captain Lee had used during the medical treatment. Though the alien translators could not interpret the specific words, the intent seemed clear. This was communication between familiar individuals. When the Shadow Maw finished eating, it approached the water bottle. So-young tilted it so the creature could drink without difficulty. The predator's massive head came within arm's reach of the human woman, yet she showed no fear. If anything, she seemed pleased by the creature's healthy appetite. Student Han Ji-woo emerged from the educational complex and walked over to observe the feeding. He was a young man in his early 20s, studying xenobiology under Dr. Park's guidance. He carried a data pad and made notes while watching the interaction. "The wound healing is progressing well," Ji-woo said in Galactic Standard, apparently for his own educational purposes. "The creature shows increased trust behaviors compared to the initial contact." So-young nodded while keeping her attention on the Shadow Maw. "Beko is adapting quickly to the feeding schedule. Dr. Cho says his leg should be fully healed within another week." Thexmore's forearms froze over his recording equipment. "They have named the predator," he announced to his team. "Beko appears to be a Korean designation." "More significantly," added Kliktar, "they have established a regular feeding schedule. This is not random kindness. This is systematic behavioral conditioning." The feeding concluded without incident. Beko the Shadow Maw touched his massive head briefly against So-young's shoulder in what could only be interpreted as gratitude or affection. Then he retreated to the grass line and settled down in a position that provided a clear view of the settlement. Throughout the day, the alien observers noted that Beko remained at his chosen post. Motion sensors tracked his movements as he occasionally patrolled the settlement's perimeter, but always returned to his watching position. His presence did not alarm the human colonists. If anything, they seemed comforted by his proximity. As evening approached, the alien team detected multiple Shadow Maw signatures moving through the forest toward the colony. This was typical hunting behavior for the species. Packs would converge on promising territory as darkness provided better camouflage for their attacks. "This will be the real test," Thexmore observed. "We will see how the humans respond to a genuine threat from multiple predators." The pack consisted of 5 adult Shadow Maws, moving with the coordinated precision that made them such effective hunters. They approached the settlement from 3 different directions, using natural terrain, features to mask their advance. Only the alien sensors detected their presence initially, but as the pack drew closer, Beko rose from his resting position. The formerly wounded Shadow Maw moved to intercept the approaching hunters. He positioned himself directly between the pack and the human settlement, his body language shifting to clear territorial display. What followed challenged every assumption the alien observers held about predator behavior. Instead of joining his own species in a potential hunt, Beko actively deterred them from approaching the human colony. He used scent markings, posture displays, and low vocalizations to communicate with the pack. The wild Shadow Maws seemed confused by this behavior. They circled at a distance, testing Beko's resolve, but he maintained his protective position, making it clear that the humans were under his protection. After nearly an hour of tense standoff, the wild pack retreated into the forest. They had been denied access to their preferred hunting ground by one of their own species who had chosen to protect the very prey they sought. "Unprecedented," whispered Sisital. "A solitary predator has abandoned pack loyalty to defend another species." Thexmore reviewed his recordings with growing unease. The implications were staggering. "The humans did not simply show mercy to a wounded animal," he announced to his team. "They have converted an apex predator into a guardian." The next morning brought confirmation of this new reality. Beko remained at his self-appointed post, alert and protective. When human children played near the settlement's edge, he watched over them with obvious care. When adults worked outside the main buildings, he patrolled nearby areas to ensure their safety. Dr. Park Minji emerged for her morning rounds and paused to check on Beko's healing progress. The massive predator submitted to her examination with complete trust, allowing her to change his bandages and inspect his recovering leg. "Good boy," she said in Korean, scratching behind his ears the way someone might pet a domestic animal. "You are healing beautifully." Young Han Ji-woo joined his mentor for the medical check. "Dr. Park, how long do you think before Beko is ready? For advanced training?" "Advanced training for what purpose?" Thexmore wondered aloud. Dr. Park considered the question while testing Beko's leg mobility. "Another month should be sufficient. Captain Lee wants to begin perimeter patrol coordination before the seasonal migrations begin." The alien observation team exchanged alarmed communications. The humans were not simply caring for an injured predator. They had plans for integrating him into their defense systems. This was not mercy. This was recruitment of the most sophisticated kind. As Thexmore compiled his daily report, he struggled to find appropriate terminology for what he had witnessed. The humans had transformed a dangerous apex predator into a willing ally through nothing more complex than food, medical care, and consistent kindness. They had achieved in days what most species considered impossible, but the most disturbing realization was yet to come. If humans could accomplish this conversion so easily with one shadow maw, what prevented them from recruiting entire packs? What prevented them from forming alliances with every dangerous species on the planet? The feeding had revealed the truth. Humans were not showing mercy to wounded animals. They were systematically building an army of biological allies, one predator at a time, and they were very, very good at it. The 7th day of observation began with troubling sensor readings. Long-range scanners detected a large pack of shadow maws moving toward New Seoul from the northern territories. Unlike the small hunting groups they had observed previously, this formation consisted of nearly 20 adult predators traveling together. Thexmore studied the data with growing concern. Pack movements of this size typically indicate territorial disputes or major prey migrations. The humans may face their first genuine crisis. Clicktar's compound eyes tracked the approaching signatures on the display screens. Estimated arrival. Time is sunset. That gives the humans approximately 8 hours to prepare evacuations. The alien observers had documented standard evacuation procedures used by other galactic civilizations. When faced with overwhelming predator threats, most species retreated to orbital stations or underground bunkers until the danger passed. Some civilizations deployed automated defense systems to drive off the predators with sonic barriers or energy weapons. But as the morning progressed, the humans of New Seoul showed no signs of preparation for evacuation or combat. Colonists continued their normal routines. Children attended their educational sessions. Adults worked on infrastructure projects. The only difference was the appearance of 2 additional humans the alien team had not yet catalogued. Ranger Oh Hyun-woo arrived from the outer territories riding what appeared to be a mechanical transport. He was a lean man in his 30s with weathered skin and alert eyes that constantly scanned his surroundings. His clothing was practical field gear designed for extended wilderness travel. Communications Officer Nam Eun-bi emerged from the Central Command building carrying portable transmission equipment. She was a young woman with short black hair and efficient movements that suggested military training. Her gear included advanced sensor arrays and what appeared to be translation software. Captain Lee Ji-ho called a brief meeting in the Central Plaza. The colonists gathered in their usual informal circles while the captain addressed them in Korean. Though the alien translators could not interpret the specific words, the tone suggested routine information sharing rather than emergency planning. Are they not aware of the approaching threat? Wondered Sissatel. Thexmore checked his sensor readings again. The pack is still 6 hours away, but their approach vector will bring them directly through the colony. The humans must evacuate soon or face catastrophic losses. But instead of evacuation preparations, the aliens observed something entirely unexpected. Ranger O approached the area where Baeko maintained his watching post. The recovered Shadow Maw rose to greet the human with obvious familiarity. O spoke to the creature in Korean, while making hand gestures the alien observers could not interpret. Baeko responded with a series of low rumbles and body postures. To the amazement of the watching aliens, O seemed to understand these communications. He nodded and made different hand signals, and Baeko answered with more vocalizations. "They are communicating," Clicktar announced. "The human and the predator are exchanging complex information." Communications Officer Nam positioned herself near the interaction and activated her equipment. Arrays of sensors began recording the exchange between human and Shadow Maw. Her instruments appeared designed specifically for analyzing non-human communication patterns. O concluded his conversation with Baeko and returned to the central plaza. He spoke briefly with Captain Lee, who nodded with satisfaction. Whatever information had been shared seemed to meet with approval. As afternoon approached, the alien observers detected movement in the settlement's surrounding areas. Their sensors registered multiple Shadow Maw signatures emerging from concealed positions throughout the valley. These were not the approaching northern pack, but individual predators who had apparently been living near the human colony without the aliens' knowledge. "Impossible," breathed Thexmore. "The settlement is surrounded by Shadow Maws. How did our sensors miss them?" "They were not hiding from our instruments," Clicktar realized. "They were simply living normally in their territory. We assumed any predators near the humans would maintain hunting distances." The concealed Shadow Maws began moving toward predetermined positions around the colony. Their movements were coordinated and purposeful, suggesting planned defensive arrangements rather than random predator behavior. Each creature took up a post that provided optimal territorial coverage while maintaining sight lines to neighboring positions. Baeko left his usual watching spot and moved to the settlement's northern edge, where the approaching pack would first encounter the colony's perimeter. His position commanded a clear view of the main approach route, while providing multiple retreat options if needed. The alien observers counted 12 Shadow Maws now visible around the human settlement. Each creature maintained alert postures and watchful attention toward the northern forests. This was clearly a defensive formation, but one implemented by predators rather than technology. "The humans have been surrounded by allies, not threats," Sissetal concluded. "These creatures have been protecting the colony all along." As sunset approached, the northern pack crested the ridge overlooking New Seoul Valley. 20 massive Shadow Maws paused to survey the territory below them. Their formation indicated serious territorial intentions rather than casual hunting behavior. The alien observers prepared to document what they expected would be either a massacre or a desperate human evacuation. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented in galactic xenobiology records. The resident Shadow Maws rose from their positions around the colony and moved to form a defensive line between the approaching pack and the human settlement. But this was not a typical territorial confrontation between rival predator groups. Captain Lee Ji-ho walked calmly to the center of the defensive formation. He showed no weapons and displayed no fear as he positioned himself directly between opposing groups of apex predators. His presence seemed to provide focus and leadership for the defending Shadow Maws. The northern pack descended into the valley and approached the defensive line. What followed was unlike any predator behavior documented by galactic science. Instead of immediate combat, both groups engaged in complex communication rituals. Scent marking, posture displays, and intricate vocalizations passed between the opposing Shadow Maws. The alien translation computers identified some patterns as territorial claims, others as pack hierarchy negotiations, and still others as resource availability discussions. Captain Lee stood quietly in the center of these exchanges, occasionally offering soft words in Korean that both groups of predators seemed to acknowledge. His role appeared to be mediator rather than participant. helping facilitate communication between the rival packs. Communications Officer Nam monitored the entire exchange through her specialized equipment. Her instruments translated portions of the Shadowmaw communications, providing Captain Lee with additional information about the pack's intentions and concerns. The negotiation continued for over an hour. During this time, no human showed signs of panic or preparation for combat. Children watched from safe distances with curiosity rather than fear. Adults maintained their positions but seemed confident in the outcome. Finally, the alpha male of the Northern Pack approached Captain Lee directly. This was the moment the alien observers expected violence, but instead witnessed something that challenged their understanding of interspecies relations. The massive predator, standing nearly as tall as the human captain, lowered his head in what appeared to be a submissive gesture. Captain Lee reached out slowly and placed his hand on the creature's broad skull, speaking softly in Korean. The pack alpha straightened and turned to address his followers with a series of commanding vocalizations. The northern Shadowmaws responded by settling into resting positions, their aggressive postures replaced by relaxed alertness. "They have been accepted," Thexamore announced in amazement. "The Northern Pack has submitted to human authority without a single act of violence." Ranger O approached the newly arrived predators with containers of prepared food and fresh water. The same feeding ritual that had begun Bako's integration was now extended to 20 additional Shadowmaws. Each creature accepted the offered sustenance while maintaining respectful distance from the humans. As night fell over New Sol, the alien observers conducted their most important analysis session yet. The implications of what they had witnessed extended far beyond a single colonial settlement. "The humans have not simply tamed individual predators," Thexamore reported to his team. "They have assumed leadership positions within the existing pack, hierarchies. They are becoming apex social leaders for multiple predator species. Consider the strategic advantages," added Kliktar. "Human settlements effectively gain the protection of every territorial predator in their region. No other threats can approach without facing coordinated resistance from creatures specifically adapted for combat in local conditions." Sissetal reviewed the physiological data from the confrontation. Human stress responses remained minimal throughout the encounter. This suggests extensive previous experience with similar situations. They have developed systematic protocols for predator integration. The second week of observation revealed the true scope of human activity on Kepler 442c. As Thexamore delved deeper into colony records and interviewed additional human personnel, a disturbing pattern emerged that extended far beyond New Sol's relationship with local Shadowmaws. Dr. Cho Sungjin arrived at the colony on the 8th day, returning from a research expedition to the southern continent. He was a veterinarian in his 50s, with gentle hands and patient eyes that suggested years of working with animals. His transport vehicle carried specialized medical equipment and what appeared to be biological samples from various planetary species. "Dr. Cho has been cataloging predator species across the entire planet," explained Dr. Park Minji during the alien team's interview session. "We need to understand the behavioral patterns and social structures of every dangerous creature we might encounter." Thexamore's recording devices captured every word as Dr. Cho described his findings. The ice bears of the polar regions respond well to consistent food provisioning and gradual social integration. The desert sand drakes require different approaches, but they also show capacity for human partnership once proper trust is established. "You have contacted predators on other continents?" Kliktar asked with obvious alarm. "Of course," Dr. Cho replied, as if this were perfectly normal. "Human expansion requires comprehensive species integration planning. We cannot simply hope that dangerous creatures will ignore our presence." Agricultural specialist Lee Hanna joined, the discussion carrying samples of specially formulated food preparations. She was a woman in her 40s with dirt under her fingernails and the practical clothes of someone who worked directly with plants and soil. "Each predator species has different nutritional requirements and taste preferences, Lihana explained while displaying her samples. Standard human food cannot provide proper nutrition for carnivorous partners. We must develop appropriate dietary supplements. The alien observers exchanged alarmed communications. The humans were not simply reacting to local predator encounters. They were systematically planning integration strategies for every dangerous species on the planet. Show them the behavioral charts, suggested Dr. Park. Lihana activated a portable display screen that showed detailed analyses of predator social structures, hunting patterns, territorial behaviors, and communication methods. The data was comprehensive and professionally compiled, representing months of careful scientific observation. Ice bears operate in family groups with matriarchal leadership, Lihana explained. Sand drakes maintain territorial hierarchies based on size and age. Forest stalkers use pack hunting with complex role specialization. Each species requires different integration approaches. Thexmore studied the charts with growing unease. You have behavioral data on predators from every continent on this planet. Only the dangerous ones, Dr. Cho clarified. Smaller predators and herbivorous species do not require integration protocols. They coexist naturally once the apex predators accept human presence. The implications were staggering. Humans were not simply adapting to local conditions on individual worlds. They were developing systematic methods for converting entire planetary ecosystems into allied networks. Child prodigy Kim Do-yoon provided the most disturbing revelation of all. At 12 years old, she demonstrated an intuitive understanding of predator psychology that impressed even the alien xenobiology specialists. Shadow moths respond to consistent leadership and clear boundaries, Do-yoon explained, while casually interacting with Baekho. They need to understand their place in the social hierarchy, but they also need to feel valued and protected. The massive predator submitted to the child's gentle handling with complete trust. She checked his healing, injuries, and provided treats while maintaining the confident posture of someone born to work with dangerous animals. "How long have you been training to work with predators?" Sisital asked. "Since I could walk," Do-yoon replied. All human children learn predator integration as part of basic education. It is necessary for colonial survival. Teacher Lim Min-seok and Nurse Park Ji-young, Do-yoon's parents, confirmed that predator partnership was indeed a standard part of human childhood development. Children began with small, less dangerous species and gradually worked up to apex predators as they matured. "Our daughter shows particular aptitude," Lim Min-seok explained proudly. "She may qualify for advanced integration training when she reaches 16. The alien observation team requested access to communication logs from other human colonies. What they discovered challenged every assumption about human expansion patterns across the galaxy. Messages from ice world colonies described successful partnerships with territorial ice bears that provided cold weather survival assistance and protection from other Arctic predators. Desert settlements reported alliances with sand drakes that offered guidance through dangerous terrain and early warning of environmental hazards. Forest colonies had integrated with aerial predators that provided reconnaissance and rapid transportation between settlements. Ocean world humans worked with aquatic apex species for underwater resource gathering and protection from hostile marine life. Every human colony followed the same basic pattern: identify local apex predators, study their behavior and needs, establish trust through consistent care and feeding, gradually integrate them into colonial defense and expansion plans. "This is not accidental," Thexmore announced to his team. "Humans have developed standardized protocols for apex predator integration. They are implementing these methods across every world they colonize." Communications Officer Nam provided additional evidence when she shared message intercepts from the Galactic Council's other observation missions. Human colonies throughout the sector showed identical integration patterns adapted to local predator species. Estimated timeline for complete planetary integration on most worlds is 18 to 24 months, Nam reported. Humans typically achieve apex predator partnerships within the first year of colonial establishment. The scope of human activity became clear when Captain Lee shared expansion plans for New Seoul. The colony intended to establish 3 additional settlements within the next 6 months, extending human presence to territories currently controlled by different predator species. The mountain settlements will require ice bear integration, Captain Lee explained to the aliens. Desert expansion depends on sand-drake partnerships. Forest territories need aerial predator alliances. You plan to contact predators you have never encountered before? Thexmore asked. Dr. Cho has been preparing integration protocols based on his research expeditions, Captain Lee replied. We expect successful partnerships within 2 to 3 months of first contact. The confidence in his voice was absolute. Humans did not consider predator integration challenging or dangerous. They treated it as routine colonial procedure. Security Chief Kang Dong-hyun demonstrated just how routine it had become when he introduced his young son, Min-ho, to the alien observers. The boy, barely 6 years old, played casually with Baeko while his father discussed security arrangements. Min-ho has been working with Shadow Maws since he was 4, Kang Dong-hyun explained. He shows natural talent for predator communication. His generation will achieve integration levels we can barely imagine. The child rode on Baeko's broad back while the massive predator patrolled the settlement's perimeter. Neither showed any concern about this arrangement. For them, it was simply normal daily routine. Your son does not fear the predator, observed. Clicktar. Fear Baeko? Kang Dong-hyun laughed. Baeko is family. Minho has never known a world without Shadow Maw partners. His children will grow up with even closer integration. The generational implications were terrifying to contemplate. If human children grew up as natural partners with apex predators, future generations would possess abilities that no other galactic species could match. That evening, Thexmore compiled his most alarming report yet. Human colonial expansion is not simply about establishing settlements, he transmitted to the Galactic Council. They are systematically converting entire planetary ecosystems into extensions of human civilization. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans did not fight dangerous environments or try to eliminate threatening species. Instead, they recruited the most dangerous creatures as active allies and partners. Within a few generations, human colonies would be protected by armies of apex predators that reproduced and maintained themselves. No other galactic civilization had ever achieved anything comparable. Most species required advanced technology to survive on hostile worlds. Humans required only patience, understanding, and the willingness to treat dangerous predators as potential family members. The strategic advantages were enormous. Human settlements could expand into any environment because they converted environmental threats into environmental assets. Their biological allies provided protection, reconnaissance, transportation, and local expertise that no technology could match. And the pattern was accelerating. Each successful integration provided knowledge for faster integration of similar species on other worlds. Humans were not just establishing colonies, they were creating a galactic network of allied ecosystems. The most disturbing realization was that humans had barely begun to explore their potential. The alien research team entered their second week of observation with a growing sense of unease. What had begun as routine documentation of human colonial methods had revealed something far more significant than anyone had anticipated. Thexmore found himself questioning fundamental assumptions about evolution, intelligence, and survival strategies that had guided galactic civilization for millennia. Professor Bai Wanho arrived at New Seoul on the 10th day, bringing with him historical records and research materials that would provide the most disturbing revelations yet. He was an elderly man with silver hair and wise eyes, carrying himself with the dignity of someone who had spent decades studying the deep patterns of history. Professor Bai specializes in comparative evolutionary biology, Dr. Park Minji explained. to the alien observers. He studies how different species develop survival strategies across various environments. The professor's portable laboratory contained extensive databases covering thousands of species from hundreds of worlds. But his most valuable resources were the historical records of human development dating back to their origins on Earth. Every successful species develops methods for dealing with environmental challenges, Professor Bay explained during his first interview with the alien team. Most rely on physical adaptations, technological developments, or social organization. Improvements. Humans chose a different path. Thexmore leaned forward with intense interest. What path did humans choose? Partnership, the professor replied simply. Humans realized very early that converting threats into allies was more efficient than fighting or avoiding them. Professor Bay activated his historical displays, showing images and data from human development over the past 15,000 years. The alien observers studied documentation of human interactions with various Earth species, watching patterns that explained everything they had witnessed on Kepler 442c. Wolves became dogs, Professor Bay continued. Wild aurochs became cattle. Fierce horses became transportation partners. Humans have a documented history of converting dangerous or useful species into cooperative allies through patience, understanding, and mutual benefit. Colonial Administrator Song Hyejin joined the discussion, bringing current expansion data that demonstrated how these ancient patterns were being applied on a galactic scale. She was a competent woman in her 40s with the organized mind of someone responsible for long-term planning. Our expansion protocols are based on 15 millennia of successful species integration, Song Hyejin explained. We apply proven methods developed on Earth to the species we encounter on new worlds. The implications were staggering. Humans were not learning to work with alien predators through trial and error. They were applying sophisticated techniques, refined over thousands of years of successful implementation. Show them the efficiency comparisons, suggested Professor Bay. Song Hyejin displayed charts comparing human colonial establishment timelines with those of other galactic civilizations. The data was remarkable. While most species required decades to establish secure settlements on hostile worlds, humans achieved the same results in months. Defense systems, environmental barriers, and threat elimination protocols require enormous resource investment, Song Hyejin explained. Biological alliance systems require only food, medical care, and social integration. The cost difference is enormous. Security Chief Kang Dong-yun provided tactical analysis that highlighted the military advantages of human methods. His son Minho played nearby with several Shadow Maw companions, demonstrating the casual integration that had become normal for human children. Traditional defenses can be overcome through superior technology or numerical advantage, Kang Dong-yun explained. Biological allies adapt and improve continuously. They reproduce themselves, maintain their own equipment, and develop stronger loyalty bonds over time. The alien observers watched 6-year-old Minho communicating easily with predators that could kill him instantly. The child showed no fear because he had never learned to see these creatures as threats. For him, they were simply family members with different shapes. Your children grow up as natural partners with apex predators, Kliktar observed with obvious concern. Of course, Kang Dong-hyun replied. Each generation achieves closer integration than the previous one. Minho's children will have capabilities we cannot imagine. The evolutionary implications were terrifying to contemplate. Human children were being shaped by environments that included apex predators as normal social partners. Within a few generations, humans would possess instinctive abilities for interspecies cooperation that no other galactic civilization could match. Communications Officer Nam provided the most disturbing data when she shared message intercepts from across the human expansion zone. Colonial reports described integration successes that defied everything the aliens thought they knew about predator behavior. Ice World colonies report ice bear partnerships providing cold weather survival rates exceeding 90%, NAMI. Read from her reports. Desert settlements achieve sand drake alliances that reduce environmental hazard deaths to near zero. Forest colonies establish aerial predator partnerships that increase resource gathering efficiency by 400%. Professor Bay nodded with satisfaction. Each environment presents different challenges, but the underlying principles remain constant. Identify the apex species, understand their needs and behaviors, establish trust through consistent benefit, integrate them into human social structures. The pattern works on every world we settle, added Song Hyejin. Hostile environments become advantages because we convert environmental threats into environmental assets. Thexmore reviewed his accumulating data with growing alarm. Humans are not simply establishing colonies, they are creating hybrid ecosystems where apex predators serve human expansion goals. More than that, Professor Bay corrected. We are creating new evolutionary pressures that benefit both species. Shadow maws that partner with humans achieve better nutrition, medical care, and protection for their offspring. Humans that partner with shadow maws achieve better security, reconnaissance, and environmental adaptation. The professor's analysis revealed the true scope of human strategy. This was not temporary cooperation for immediate survival. This was deliberate evolutionary manipulation designed to create permanent advantages for both species. Young mother Han Soo-young demonstrated these advantages when she emerged from the residential area carrying her infant daughter while accompanied by 2 adult shadow maws. The predators flanked her protectively, alert for any potential threats to the human family they had adopted. My daughter will grow up learning shadow maw communication as naturally as Korean, Han Soo-young explained to the alien observers. She will understand predator psychology and ecosystem integration from birth. The infant showed no fear of the massive creatures surrounding her. She reached out to touch their fur with tiny hands while making baby sounds that the shadow maws seemed to interpret as communication attempts. Intergenerational improvement, Professor Bay observed. Each human generation achieves closer integration with local species. Each shadow maw generation becomes more attuned to human social patterns. Both species benefit from the relationship. Child twins. Yoo Jae-min and Yoo Jae-hyun provided the most compelling evidence of this evolutionary acceleration. At 8 years old, they demonstrated communication abilities with shadow maws that amazed even the human adults. The boys spoke to the predators using combinations of Korean words, hand gestures, and vocal sounds that mimicked shadow maw language patterns. They are developing hybrid communication systems, Professor Bay noted with scientific fascination. The children instinctively create language bridges between human and predator communication methods. The twins rode their shadow maw companions through the settlement with the casual confidence of experienced riders. They understood predator body language, social hierarchies, and emotional states with intuitive precision that required no formal training. Previous generations needed years of study to achieve basic predator communication, Dr. Park observed. These children accomplish advanced integration naturally through constant exposure. Thexmore realized he was witnessing accelerated evolution in action. Human children exposed to predator partnerships from birth developed capabilities that took their parents years to learn. Each generation would possess advantages the previous generation could not imagine. The strategic implications became clear when Communications Officer Nam shared intercepted messages from Galactic Council military analysts. Other civilizations were beginning to notice human expansion patterns and expressing concern about their implications. The Zentaurian Empire has classified human colonies as potential security threats, Nam reported. They are concerned about human ability to rapidly establish secure settlements in territories other species consider uninhabitable. The Aquatic Federation questions human expansion into ocean worlds, she continued. They cannot understand how humans achieve successful settlements in environments dominated by hostile marine predators. The 14th day of observation brought a crisis that would force the alien research team to confront the true scope of human capabilities. Long-range sensors detected massive movement from the unexplored western territories of Kepler 414-2c. Something unprecedented was approaching New Sol, and it would test everything the humans had accomplished. Death Stalkers were legendary across this sector of space. Standing 3 meters tall at the shoulder and measuring nearly 8 meters in length, they represented the ultimate apex predator. Their armored hide could deflect most energy weapons. Their intelligence rivaled that of many spacefaring species. Their territorial aggression had forced the evacuation of every previous settlement attempt on worlds where they lived. 12 Death Stalkers approaching from the western Badlands, announced Communications Officer Nam as she monitored the long-range arrays. Estimated arrival time is 6 hours. Thexmore felt his forearms trembling as he processed this information. His database contained records of Deathstalker encounters from 17 different worlds. Every contact had resulted in complete evacuation or total colony loss. These creatures had never been successfully approached by any galactic species. The humans must begin immediate evacuation procedures, Kliktar announced. Deathstalkers cannot be reasoned with or deterred. They eliminate all other life forms from territories they claim. But as morning progressed, the humans of New Sol showed no signs of panic or evacuation preparation. Instead, they began what they called First Contact Protocol, with the same calm efficiency they had shown during previous predator encounters. Elder Council Representative Choi Sun-hee emerged from the administrative complex carrying ceremonial items and formal documents. She was a woman in her 70s with silver hair and the dignified bearing of someone who had guided difficult decisions for decades. Her presence commanded immediate respect from every human in the settlement. Representative Choi has extensive experience with apex predator negotiations, explained Captain Lee Ji-ho to the alien observers. She successfully established our first ice bear partnerships on the northern continent. Young mother Han Soo-young joined the preparation activities while carrying her infant daughter. The baby seemed completely unaware of the approaching danger, playing happily while surrounded by Shadow Maw guardians who had become her extended family. You cannot seriously intend to negotiate with Deathstalkers while carrying a human infant, Sisatal protested. These creatures show no mercy to any life form they encounter. Fear is the enemy of successful integration, Han Soo-young replied, calmly. If we approach them with terror and aggression, they will respond with terror and aggression. We must demonstrate confidence and peaceful intentions. Child twins, Yu Jaemin and Yu Jae-hyun, prepared their Shadow Maw companions for what the humans were calling diplomatic escort duty. The 8-year-old boys showed no concern about facing creatures that could destroy them instantly. For them, this was simply another opportunity to practice their interspecies communication skills. The children will serve as communication bridges, explained Dr. Cho Seung-jin as he prepared medical supplies for the encounter. Deathstalkers and Shadow Maws share some behavioral patterns. The twins can help facilitate initial contact through their Shadow Maw partners. The alien observers watched in horrified fascination as the entire human population, including small children and elderly citizens, prepared to advance toward the approaching Deathstalkers rather than retreat from them. This violated every known protocol for dealing with ultimate apex predators. Dr. Cho's biological research proved crucial to the preparation process. Months of studying planetary ecosystems had provided detailed information about Deathstalker behavior, communication methods, and social structures. The humans approached this encounter with scientific knowledge rather than desperate hope. Death. Stalkers respond to specific scent markers that indicate non-threatening intentions, Dr. Cho explained while preparing chemical compounds. Shadow Maws can provide some of these markers, but we must also demonstrate our understanding of Deathstalker social hierarchy. Agricultural specialist Lee Hana contributed food preparations designed specifically for Deathstalker nutritional requirements. Her research had identified protein sources and mineral supplements that would appeal to creatures of their size and dietary needs. Successful first contact requires appropriate gifts, Lihanna explained while loading containers of specially prepared meat. We must demonstrate our value as allies rather than simply asking for tolerance. As the Deathstalkers approached the valley containing New Sol, the human settlement organized itself for the most dangerous first contact attempt in galactic history. 21 Shadow Maws formed protective formations around their human families, but their postures indicated escort duty rather than combat preparation. Elder Representative Choi led the human delegation toward the valley's western edge, where the Deathstalkers would first encounter the settlement. She walked with ceremonial dignity while carrying traditional offerings and formal documents that established human intentions. Captain Lee Ji-ho, Dr. Park Min-ji, and Dr. Cho Seung-jin accompanied the elder representative, each bringing expertise, essential for successful negotiation. Behind them, young mother Han Soo-young carried her infant, while flanked by protective Shadow Maws, who had adopted the baby as their own family member. The twins, Jae-min and Jae-hyun, rode their Shadow Maw companions, at the delegation's flanks, ready to provide communication assistance through their unique hybrid language abilities. Their casual confidence in the face of ultimate danger demonstrated how completely human children had adapted to predator partnership. The Deathstalkers crested the western ridge like moving mountains. Their massive forms dominated the landscape, as they surveyed the valley below with intelligent yellow eyes. These creatures had destroyed settlements, defended by advanced military technology. They showed no fear of anything in the known galaxy. The lead Deathstalker was enormous, even by the standards of his species. Battle scars marked his armored hide, evidence of decades spent dominating the planet's most dangerous territories. His presence radiated the absolute authority of a creature that had never encountered successful resistance. The human delegation advanced to meet the Deathstalkers in open ground between the ridge and the settlement. No weapons were visible. No defensive barriers activated. The humans relied entirely on their ability to communicate peaceful intentions to creatures that had never shown mercy to any other species. The Shadow Maws accompanying the humans began the initial communication phase. Using scent markers, body postures, and vocalizations, they attempted to convey human intentions to the Deathstalkers. The massive predators listened with obvious intelligence, processing information through communication channels that most galactic species could not access. Twins, Jae-min and Jae-hyun, demonstrated their unique abilities by facilitating translations between Shadow Maw communications and human understanding. Their hybrid language skills allowed them to interpret subtle meanings that pure translation equipment could not capture. The lead Deathstalker is curious about human presence in traditional Shadow Maw territory, Jae-min reported to Elder Representative Choi. He wants to understand why Shadow Maws accept humans as pack members. Dr. Cho stepped forward with his prepared offerings, presenting nutritionally appropriate food and medical supplies that demonstrated human understanding of Deathstalker needs. The massive predator examined these gifts with obvious intelligence, recognizing the effort required to provide species-specific care. Young mother Han Soo-young provided the most compelling demonstration of human confidence by allowing her infant, daughter, to remain visible throughout the encounter. The baby's presence communicated that humans viewed this as peaceful negotiation rather than desperate survival attempt. The Deathstalkers spent nearly 2 hours evaluating the human delegation. Through methods that combined direct observation, scent analysis, and communication with the accompanying Shadow Maws. During this time, no human showed signs of fear or impatience. Finally, the lead Deathstalker approached Elder Representative Choi directly. The massive creature lowered his armored head in a gesture that seemed to acknowledge her authority and dignity. Representative Choi responded by placing her hand on his broad skull while speaking formal words in Korean that conveyed respect and peaceful intentions. The acceptance ritual that followed challenged every assumption about apex predator behavior. Instead of territorial aggression, the Deathstalkers demonstrated curiosity about human social structures and their relationship with Shadowmaw allies. Over the following hours, Dr. Cho provided medical care for minor injuries several Deathstalkers had sustained during their territorial travels. Lee Hana offered nutritionally appropriate meals that the massive predators accepted with obvious appreciation. Most remarkably, the Deathstalkers allowed human children to approach them without showing aggression. Twins Jaemin and Jaehyun successfully established basic communication protocols that would enable future interactions. As evening approached, the Deathstalkers had not departed. Instead, they had settled into resting positions around the settlement's perimeter, joining the Shadowmaws in protective formations that now included both apex predator species on the planet. "Impossible," whispered Thexmore as he reviewed his recordings. "No galactic civilization has ever achieved peaceful contact with Deathstalkers. These humans have converted them into allies within a single day." Elder Representative Choi provided the final revelation that would reshape galactic understanding of human capabilities. "Deathstalkers were never mindlessly aggressive," she explained to the alien observers. "They are highly intelligent creatures who respond to appropriate social approaches. Previous contact attempts failed because other species approached them with fear and weapons rather than respect and understanding. The settlement of New Sol now enjoyed protection from every apex predator species on Kepler 442c. Shadowmaws provided reconnaissance and perimeter security. Deathstalkers offered ultimate territorial protection and heavy assault capabilities. No force in the galaxy could threaten a human colony defended by such allies. Thexmore faced the moment of truth as he compiled his final report to the Galactic Council. The implications of human abilities extended far beyond colonial expansion. Humans represented a fundamental evolution in galactic civilization. "Final recommendation to Galactic Council," Thexmore dictated with trembling voice. "Humanity should not be classified as a standard member species. They are becoming something unprecedented in galactic history, a symbiotic apex species that transforms rather than conquers ecosystems. Human expansion does not represent competition for resources," he continued. "It represents the emergence of a new type of civilization that creates beneficial relationships with every environment and species they encounter. Within a few generations, human colonies will be protected by biological allies that reproduce, themselves improve continuously, and develop stronger loyalty bonds over time. No military technology can compete with evolution itself." The most disturbing realization was that humans had barely begun to explore their potential. If they could integrate the galaxy's most dangerous predators this easily, nothing prevented them from applying the same methods to intelligent species. "Humans may represent evolution's next step," Thexmore concluded. "They do not simply adapt to environments. They transform environments into extensions of human civilization through partnership rather than conquest." As the alien observation team prepared to depart Kepler 442c, young Minho Kong waved goodbye while riding his Shadowmaw companion. Behind him, a Deathstalker grazed peacefully in the settlement's gardens while human children played nearby without fear. The final scene that would haunt Thexmore's dreams showed infant daughter of Han Soo-young sleeping safely against the massive flank of a Deathstalker that had become her guardian. The ultimate apex predator had transformed into a protective family member within hours of first contact. The galaxy would never be the same. Humans had proven that what other species achieved through technology and force, they accomplished through understanding and partnership. They were not conquerors or competitors. They were evolution's solution to the challenges of galactic civilization, a species that made everything better simply by joining it. And they were just getting started.